Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Bobby Sylvester, and today Tags and I have a show put together that I've really been looking forward to. We're going to each give our top 10 facts. Tags, actually, I don't know if we should use that word. Let's just say top 10 stats from last season. Then we'll discuss what it means for the 2018 fantasy season. How's it going, brother?
Oh, it's going good, man. It's weird because, you know, this article that we're going to be talking about today, it's an article I wrote back. It was like almost like immediately after the season. I think I released this article back in February, but for whatever reason, you know, people walked away from football. They stopped, you know, looking at articles, but I tweeted it out the other day and it's gotten like so much traction. Now it's all over Reddit. It's all over everywhere and people are talking about it. So it's really cool. And if you haven't seen that article, it's you can go to fantasypros.com/facts and it's going to direct you right to the page where I did an article based on it's 82 interesting stats from the fantasy football season that was 2017. And not some of the stats you can't just find anywhere. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on there.
Great stuff.
Yeah. And some people have asked us, you know, like, okay, they're very interesting, but what does this mean for fantasy football? So we thought, what better way to do an episode is to talk about some of these stats that we find most interesting and how they relate to like fantasy football going into 2018.
You know, and if you've got the article and you read it and you already understood what you can take from it, we've got some new ones too. Like we each picked 5 or 6 that we really liked from there, and we each added some new ones as well. Man, I'll tell you what, Tags, I'm kind of steamed right now. So I need this podcast to blow off some steam. Last night, I went to go get ice cream for my wife, and like I never eat ice cream. I used to be like the ice cream king of the Midwest. I was kind of famous for it, but now I never eat it. Anyway, I stand in the medium-sized line. It takes like 9 hours for me to get my ice cream. So I decide I'm getting myself something because I was really tough. I didn't even complain once to the people standing in front of me. So I asked for a Ski ice cream slush. For those of you who don't know, Ski's like, it is the greatest soda in the world. No hyperbole in this story, by the way. Slush machine is down. Okay, so I'll take a Ski float. They're out of Ski. Okay, give me a root beer float. That'll be $89. Okay, whatever. So I get a root beer float. I get home. It spills a little bit in the car. Got to clean that up. Finally, I get to my ice cream. There's like one little piece of ice cream in this root beer float. So I just drink my root beer and get like 6 cavities. It's a horrible night. I couldn't sleep because of it.
Wow, that's a story, man. And know what's funny about this, like the whole ice cream thing, is that I had been doing really good on my diet, but we had a cheat day back. It was on Mother's Day. Tabby, my wife, she didn't want to cook that day, and naturally, that's fine.
Yeah,
you know, that's the day where I should be cooking. But she's like, I kind of want ice cream. So we got ice cream, and it was like we had it, and it was like both of us looked at each other like, this was very mediocre at best. Like, there's a reason that we're on our diet. We just, you don't feel great after eating ice cream. I mean, that's the thing. I know it's
Not
like
worth it.
a comfort food, but I'd actually rather eat pizza. Like, I miss pizza more than anything.
Dude, just eat pizza, man.
I should.
Put like artichoke hearts in there and you'll be fine. You will love it once you get into it.
I will not do that.
I was always afraid of it too, and I know you're scared of vegetables, but like artichoke hearts are hardly a vegetable. It kind of tastes like meat.
I honestly, I'm a pretty, like, if for those listening, I'm a normal pizza guy. Like, I like the normal toppings. Like, I don't go beyond pepperoni or sausage. Like, outside of that, you're talking about exotic stuff to me. And it's, I mean, to each his own. I don't want to rag on anybody because it might taste fine, but it's like one of those things, right? Like, my wife introduced me to nachos. I always loved nachos my entire life, but I never ate jalapenos. And she introduced me to those. She's like, just try it. And if you don't like it, then don't eat it. So I tried it, and now I can't have nachos without jalapenos. And I don't want to create that situation ever again. So if you don't need something, a topping on there, just stick without it.
If someone tells you to try Brussels sprouts and you think back to like, oh, you know, I tried jalapenos and it was really good. That's what I did. I was like, maybe I'm missing out on something here. I ate it. It was the worst food ever. I would have rather ate dog poop, I'm pretty sure. Don't tell Matt Harmon that. He will never come back on the podcast. He'll hate me forever.
Yeah, no, by the way.
But he got enough mayonnaise.
Yeah, for those that, like, you know, if you guys listen to that old show, Bobby, we haven't even addressed that. The fact that our last podcast, when it was initially released, I want to throw it out there because it was the funniest thing ever. Bobby's voice was the only one on it. And Bobby, you were talking to yourself. You sounded like a crazy man. And a lot of people messaged me about it. And they're like, obviously this is an error in the upload. And we re-uploaded it. So you're not going to be able to hear that. That was like a once in a lifetime thing. But I got so many messages from people saying that, man, it sounded pretty fun to listen to Bobby talk to himself.
A lot of people thought that it was me getting back at Tags for poking fun at me the last show. I like that a lot. I also like the, some people thought it was an April Fool's prank where it was like a Laurel and Yanny thing where you could only hear one of us talk. So some people could hear Tags, some people could hear me. That would be awesome if we could pull it off. But, we also want to get you the information. There were a lot of good comments on that. So thanks for being patient with us. Errors are bound to happen every once in a while. Our producer does an amazing job. So really thankful for Clinton. And hopefully we don't screw it up too bad for him today.
No, definitely don't want to screw it up too bad for him, including this voicemail that we're about to play. And if you guys missed it last episode, because maybe you listened to the episode when it was just Bobby, because Bobby didn't say anything about it. But we have a new voicemail line for our listeners. And if you guys missed that, the phone number is 209-881-PROS. That's PROS. And we so it's funny because I tweeted it out too, and we've gotten quite a few voicemails, but a lot of people are missing the point where we want you to leave your name, where you're from, and then your question. But a lot of people just rattle off a question, and we want to make sure that we know who we're talking to. We also want questions that would hopefully pertain to a large audience, because when you get into specific keeper questions, it's tough for everybody listening to relate. So we're going to give you an idea as to what that call should sound like, because we do have a couple of voicemails actually that the listener did extremely well. So Bobby, if you want, you can go ahead and play that one, and we'll talk about it.
Let's do it.
Hey, Bobby. Hey, Tags. This is David from New Hampshire, and I'm super high on the potential of the Vikings offense this year. Last year, I drafted Diggs and picked up Thielen off waivers. I think Diggs has top 5 potential when healthy, and Thielen is the model of consistency. Who would you target in redraft half-point PPR, especially since Diggs can sometimes be drafted 2 rounds later? Thanks, guys.
Tags, I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I love the question because it's something that a lot of people are missing. Adam Thielen is going earlier than Stefon Diggs. And I think honestly, I understand why people are doing it. Adam Thielen finished off 2016 really strong. 2017 comes, and I think he finished as the number 11 wide receiver in fantasy football. So I can't blame someone for wanting to draft Thielen, but we have to look forward, right? This is an offense that was efficient as can be last year, right? Like as much as people want to say that Kirk Cousins is an upgrade over Case Keenum, he can't really be more efficient than Case Keenum was last year, because Keenum was like a model consistency. Like, they didn't ask him to pass very much. The defense is still great. But talking about the skill sets and how this fits Kirk Cousins, has Kirk Cousins ever been a safe quarterback who's going to check down? No, I wouldn't describe him as such. So when you look at this, Stefon Diggs is playing on the perimeter a lot more than Adam Thielen is, who plays in the slot. Granted, it's a mismatch. It's a chain mover. And I think that's how Adam Thielen's going to be going forward. But I don't love him without Pat Shurmur. I'm going to be honest about this. Is like when you saw Adam Thielen's career take off, it coincided when Norv Turner resigned as the offensive coordinator of the Vikings and Pat Shurmur stepped in. And then all of a sudden, Adam Thielen became a household name. Now, he's got some positive touchdown regression coming his way, but there is no way he's seeing upwards towards 140 targets this year. It's not happening. So
somebody's got to get the passes. Have you seen their wide receiver depth chart?
Laquan Treadwell.
And Diggs is going to be hurt at some point.
Laquan Treadwell's there. Kendall Wright is still there. They drafted a couple of guys later on. Kyle Rudolph is still there. Dalvin Cook's going to be back. So there's plenty of pass catchers there. It's just my concern about this entire offense is that they're not going to need to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game because their defense is truly elite. But again, this really comes down to rapport with Kirk Cousins, whichever wide receiver gets in with him and develops that chemistry, because that can pay off in a big way. But I see Adam Thielen taking a step back into the lower end wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 territory, and Diggs, where he's being drafted, is very fair because you're paying for what he should produce, but there's upside for more. With Adam Thielen, I'm sorry, he's never going to finish with 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's not a possibility. Whereas like the Stefon Diggs thing, it reminds me of going back to like Mike Wallace and Antonio Brown when they were playing together and everybody wanted Mike Wallace. And I'm like, no, go after Antonio Brown. He's the one with more upside and you're getting him cheaper. Stefon Diggs is a similar receiver to Antonio Brown. So Stefon Diggs is my pick here, and it's really not that close considering their draft positions.
So here's the thing. I understand why everyone likes Adam Thielen. He was great last year. It was the number 12 wide receiver. He was a wide receiver 1 last season, right? But Stefon Diggs had more points per game, and he played injured in a lot of those games. I don't understand why Diggs is going so late. I think Diggs is a very good value. I don't like Thielen where he's going now. I think his ADP is going to drop, and I'd be fine taking him if he drops because I do expect him to be solid, kind of like a Golden Tate, not as many receptions or anything like that, but just a reliable week-to-week guy. And I like to have those kind of wide receivers. But, Diggs is the better wide receiver, and he's going 2 rounds later, so it's definitely Diggs for me.
Yeah, the question that I always come across is like people talking about Thielen, and it's like, would I rather have Thielen or Demaryius Thomas? And I say Thomas. They're both relatively safe, but Demaryius Thomas is playing in an offense.
He's done it longer.
Yeah, and he's also playing in an offense that, they're going to end up throwing the ball more than Minnesota likely should, just because of where the defenses are at this point in time, and the fact that Demaryius Thomas has 10 touchdown upside. We've seen that before. Adam Thielen's just never going to be that guy.
Well, Demaryius Thomas is never going to have Peyton Manning passing to him again, too.
That's very true.
Or Tim Tebow.
And he's also never going to have Brock Osweiler. So this is all positives, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that an 8 touchdown season for Demaryius Thomas is out of question. Whereas like Adam Thielen, I think he caps out around like 6 touchdowns.
Yeah. Dude, I've got this sandwich sitting right next to me. My wife was really sweet. She brought me down a sandwich because she knew, I was trying to get a bunch of stuff done. I didn't have to go up and get it for myself. But Tags was able to do the podcast early, so I jumped into it, and now this sandwich is just sitting next to me, tempting me. It's tough.
I've got Dunkin' Donuts coffee, so there's that.
I thought you were going to say donut. I was like, I thought you were on a diet, man.
No, wait a second.
You got to knock off the coffee. Like, would you trade coffee for pizza? Because I think you can make that trade. Coffee's so bad for you.
Well, hold on a second. If pizza didn't come with like the calories that it does, like, yeah, 100%. Like, I enjoy pizza more than I enjoy coffee. I like them both. Don't get me wrong. Like, every day I'll have my cup of coffee in the morning, but yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't trade it because I can't eat pizza as much as I want. If it consisted of like, 100 calories per slice of pizza, hook it up.
Well, that's not even close to fair. Because, like, if you're doing pizza, you got to do it the right way. You got to paint it with butter on top, too.
Paint it with butter? I've never heard this.
You've never done that? You don't go to, like, pick it up and you're like, hey, can you put some butter on top?
No, I've never done that. Like, is that like a real thing?
Yeah, it's a real thing. Are you serious? You've seriously never heard of that?
I have never, ever, ever heard someone say that. And I'm from the Midwest.
I really should not have told you that, because now when you get pizza, you're going to have to try it, and you're going to get like 800 pounds.
Ew.
It'll be worth it, though.
It sounds gross, man. Like, usually pizza, when you get it, it has some sort of grease on the top. The last thing you need is more butter.
All right, you ready to talk some football, man?
Oh, God, yes.
All right, we got a couple news items here. I heard that Andrew Luck picked up a kid. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
Will Carroll, who's my favorite injury expert, he said a ton of people asked him if this meant anything, and his response was, did Andrew Luck throw the kid? Did I miss something? Like, why does it matter?
It doesn't matter. And that's the thing, is like, I've basically put on mute for all Andrew Luck updates until I actually see Andrew Luck throwing a football. And that's all I really care about. Yeah, there's not much to make of Andrew Luck right now. And, I've always been optimistic with him, but it's to the point where it's like, I've lowered him down my draft board more than I care to admit. Like, in best
me too.
In best ball leagues, I'm not taking him until around like that 12 to 15 quarterback range. And I mean, granted, you could be getting a steal there, but at the same time, you might get a guy that's just not going to play, and that's gonna kill you.
I drafted him in a lot of places last year, and I'm embarrassed to admit that, because like the writing was on the wall. We knew he was going to miss at least 4 games, probably 6 or 8, and that's just stupid, right? Yeah. I won a lot of my leagues. A lot of that comes down to Alvin Kamara, Todd Gurley, guys like that. But Andrew Luck did not help with that. And I've got him right now as my QB number 14, which is crazy, right? Because I had him as number 4 at the start of the preseason. I just can't do it. It's not good advice to say he's a QB1 at this point.
No, I agree with you in that point. And that's the thing, is like, even doing my projections, like, I'm dialing him back some because I believe this team is going to want to be a little bit more run oriented. And I think even if he plays all 16 games, like if I was guaranteed that he's going to start week 1, I don't know if I could rank him in front of Drew Brees, like in that territory. So I think he's going to be right around that QB9, QB10 territory. And that's kind of where I'm at with Andrew Luck right now. I mean, I'd rather just play it safe this year, is because, like, do I think he's going to be a league winner? I don't, because I don't think he has the wide receivers to be a league winner. I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, I don't care. If he's healthy, he's a league winner, especially if you get him after like the 8th round.
I don't know if I agree with that, though, because quarterback is just so deep. Like, I'm not kidding when I tell you, in a 1 quarterback format this year, I would be okay with 20 different quarterbacks, maybe 21 or 22. It's so, the position is so deep. Like, if I don't get Aaron Rodgers, I'm waiting, and that's about it. And that's the thing. And Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to get him because I wouldn't be willing to draft him until roughly the end of the 3rd round.
Here's the thing about Andrew Luck, right? Okay, the last time he played 16 games, he had 356 fantasy points. That's 90 points above replacement level. That's like a high-end running back 1. That's who Andrew Luck can be. It doesn't matter who his guys he can pass to are. T.Y. Hilton is nothing without Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck turned T.Y. Hilton into a wide receiver 1. No one even thinks twice when Andrew Luck's on the field. T.Y. Hilton is a wide receiver 3 without Andrew Luck. Maybe 4.
I have 307 points the last time he played. So I don't know if it's just a different, maybe it's 6-point touchdowns that you're talking about.
That wasn't a full season, man.
It was 15 games. He played 15 games, and he was playing a little bit hurt that year. It came out later on that he had played through a shoulder injury. But either way, Andrew Luck's not the same quarterback that he was then. Like, that's the thing, is like, I'm not going to predict a guy that hasn't played football in well over a year to come back and just be the guy he was when he left off. And on top of that,
that's fair.
He's had whatever treatments he's had on his shoulder. That year, he did finish as the QB4. And that's what I'm saying is, like, you know, if you get him in that QB9 territory, that QB10 territory, and if you know he's going to start week 1, that's fine, because I feel like there's room for equity if he does return to form. But there's no risk built in if you take him, you know, there's nothing but risk built in if you take him in front of someone like Drew Brees, who's pretty much as safe as they come at the position. I mean, yeah, I think the argument could start coming down to like Ben Roethlisberger and Andrew Luck. I think that would be a legitimate argument as to which way you wanted to go.
No way, man. If Andrew Luck is starting week 1, I'm taking him as QB4. If I know Andrew Luck is back to good, I'm taking him QB2 and I'm taking him in the 4th round, because Andrew Luck back to good is 90 VBD. That's insane. That's first round value tags.
I'm not. There's no way that I could take a quarterback outside of Aaron Rodgers. Even honestly, I don't.
I'm not going to. There's no way we can know if he's back to good. But if he was, he's a first round value.
I don't know. I just, like I said, quarterback, I'm usually not like all on board with the late quarterback approach. And the thing is, I know it works. I really do know it works. And I also think it matters what league you play in, because a lot of people want to talk about streaming quarterbacks. But the truth of the matter is, when you play in leagues like your home leagues, like the casual listener that's at home listening right now, or if you're, let's say you're away from football and you've come back to this episode, whatever the case, when you're in a league, people aren't dumb, okay? So they know when they're going to play against you that week, and they see that you're streaming quarterbacks, and if you're ahead of them on the let's say that your waiver system is reverse order of standings, if you're ahead of them, they're going to block that quarterback from you, because it's the smart thing to do. In some of my home league, that one, like my original home league that I've had going for a while now, a lot of those guys draft 2 quarterbacks to their team. And that's the thing, is like, some may call it stupid, but it takes away some value from that streaming quarterback approach, because all of a sudden there's 23, 24 quarterbacks owned, and your options.
And you've got Joe Flacco as your starter.
Yeah. And that's like, that's not what you want to happen. That's never what you want to happen. But at the same time,
I agree.
This year, if there was ever a year where it's like, just wait a quarterback, like, this is the year, because you could wait until 12 quarterbacks are off the board, 13, 14, and sit there and
get
grab
Matt Ryan as QB 16 or 17. I'd love that.
Phillip Rivers, Patrick Mahomes, Mitch Trubisky, like all in that range. Like, yeah, Jared Goff is going as like the QB 10 right now, which baffles my mind. Like, don't do that. So yeah, like that's what I'm saying. If I don't get Aaron Rodgers, like I think Cam Newton and Russell Wilson belong in the next tier. Tom Brady maybe, but that's what I'm saying, is like, I'm
not Deshaun Watson. We'll talk about that today.
We are going to talk about that. So yeah, but that's what I'm saying. This year, quarterback is just so deep. I'm going to end up streaming quarterbacks. Like, that's going to happen.
This is why we need 2 quarterback leagues. Like, you're owning 8 running backs on your team, and in a lot of these expert leagues, there's 12 quarterbacks owned. That's it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make any sense. These are the stars of the league. Let's own 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was late to the 2 quarterback league, like the movement. And, now I play in a couple 2 quarterback leagues, and I'm actually about to do tomorrow, Bobby. We're doing our rookie draft, and it's our FantasyPros Dynasty League that is super flex. So I've been behind the 8 ball in this, like where I've never participated in a rookie 2 quarterback draft. So I have no idea where the guys like Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson are going to go in this draft. So it's like trying to figure all this stuff out it's interesting for sure, but quarterbacks should be valued more in fantasy football. It's just trying to figure out, where do you give them that value? Do you bump it up to 6-point touchdowns? Do you give them more per yardage, like a point per 20 yards instead of a point per 25? Because they should matter more than they do, especially, like I said, when you're talking about 22 quarterbacks potentially finishing as quarterback 1s. Like, you can make the argument for a lot of those guys. It's just, I don't know.
And we're going to get to another piece of news here in a second. But first, I want to talk about the giveaway we have going on thanks to pristineauction.com. We are giving away a signed Todd Gurley jersey. Tags, have you seen this thing, man?
I have, and it's it's pretty legit for those who are big fantasy football fans. It's nothing like having a jersey like that up in your house. That it really is a conversation starter. You don't realize how many people are into football until you have this stuff kind of in your house.
If you haven't used Pristine Auction before, you guys are gonna love it. I love searching through to see where the values are, and there are values. You're gonna be surprised by how affordable this is. There's hundreds of lots that go off every day, all kinds of stuff for your cave. Definitely something for everybody. And Pristine Auction is quick, free to register, and you only pay when you win. Lastly, please be sure to tell them Fantasy Pros sent you. That way they continue to do these giveaways for our listeners. That's pristineauction.com, PRISTINE. Tags, I saw a chrome orange Brian Urlacher signed helmet on there today with your name on it, man.
It's really tough for me when these things pop up. No, it really is, because I have Mike Singletary signed Bears helmet, and I've been trying to acquire everyone, like all 32 teams, but it's really tough for me to pass on like a Mitch Trubisky signed helmet or like a Brian Urlacher one. So
yeah,
it's like, man, because I know my wife's not going to let me just kind of splurge on whatever helmet I want, but they're not bad at all. Like I actually lost an auction to on an Amari Cooper helmet not long ago, and I'm kind of upset about it, but it just means that there's someone that wanted more than I did. So that's what I'm saying. Is the neatest part though is like you could throw out a bid whatever you want, and if it doesn't win, it doesn't win. At least you know it's comfortable with what you're spending, and a lot of times you'll be pleasantly surprised at how cheap it is.
All right, I got one more piece of news here. Curtis Samuel, full participant in OTAs, and this is a big deal for me. I know a lot of people think he's not fantasy relevant, but I mean, he basically missed all of last season, and in between injuries when he was finally on the field, he looks so electric, man. I love this guy. I'm going to draft Curtis Samuel in the last round everywhere.
I'm not. I just feel like this team has now all of a sudden there's a lot of people. There's a lot of moving parts. Greg Olsen coming back is going to hurt Christian McCaffrey a little bit. DJ Moore coming in is going to hurt, Curtis Samuel a lot. Devin Funchess is hurt from this. Like, the ball's just going to get spread around. Cam Newton hasn't been one to kind of lock on to one target. Throughout his career, like someone's going to get 100 targets, and I would put my money on either DJ Moore or Devin Funchess, or maybe even Christian McCaffrey, like that McCaffrey, Greg Olsen. None of these guys would surprise me if they finish with 100 targets, but Curtis Samuel, I just feel like even if he remains healthy, I think that the max area for touches for him is like in the 50 to 60 range. And I just feel like he's a guy that you're going to drop if you draft him. Like he's going to have some splash weeks for sure. And that's when you pay attention in DFS to the matchups. But as of now, it's just too crowded there in Carolina. I think people are just forgetting about the impact that Greg Olsen had on that offense and what it meant when he was gone last year. Even Christian McCaffrey's going to suffer.
And that Cam Newton can't pass at all. So, like, what are they going to do? Throw the ball 600 times? No. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, had 113 targets last year. And I remember telling you in the preseason, McCaffrey's going to get 80 receptions, man. And you guys all laughed at me.
It definitely happened. I mean, we also couldn't predict that Greg Olsen would miss almost the entire season. That obviously played into it, and that's
dude. You got to predict that stuff. You have to know.
I give up. Bobby wins.
Anything else you want to chat about before we give out stats?
No, man. Let's talk about some football.
All right, you go first. Then, what's your number 10 stat?
All right, so I can start.
Do you have them ranked, or is it just like these are 10 I like?
No, it's just 10 I like, and I'm just going to go down my list here because like it's like a child. It's like pick your your favorite kid. It's impossible to do that because you love them all, right? I love all stats, and I think they all mean something. My number 1 is dating back, or number 10 I should say, dating back to 2014. There have been 69 running backs who have totaled at least 200 carries. There have been, of those 69 running backs, just 3 of them failed to finish inside the top 24 fantasy running backs. Isaiah Crowell in 2017, Jay Ajayi in 2017, and Alfred Morris in 2015. So if there's a lesson to be learned from this, like people find this one interesting, it's if you find a running back who is going to walk into 200 carries, regardless of how you feel about his skill set, he's probably going to finish as an RB2 in fantasy football. And that's kind of crazy. It is crazy. And that's why when we talk about CJ Anderson walking into the Panthers offense, it's like, is he going to walk into that old Jonathan Stewart role? Because Jonathan Stewart had 198 carries last year. And technically that should translate into a top 24 running back.
And Christian McCaffrey can't run block at all. So he is going to play. CJ Anderson is going to play.
CJ Anderson is going to play for sure, and it's not a role. It's a role that needed to be filled. Like Cameron Artis-Payne wasn't going to be that guy, and if he was that guy, he was going to move up my boards too. But yeah, so this one is just like volume. It just goes to show what volume means to a running back. If he's going to get 200 carries, those are the running backs you want to attack in fantasy football.
Well, here's what I take from that. It's that Jay Ajayi is way overrated. And I understand, he's behind Philadelphia now, but he's splitting all the touches with all of these guys. And Darren Sproles is starting, by the way. They've already said that. So I'm not going to have any shares of Jay Ajayi, but, here's what it comes down to. I remember Frank Gore being an RB1 two of those years, and I don't think you could find anyone who wanted to start Frank Gore as an RB1, let alone not an RB2 either. Frank Gore was decent every single game. He got 15 carries every single game. Mm-hmm. He got like 40 yards, and maybe he scored a touchdown here and there. You don't want to start those guys, and so I understand finishing as an RB2 is a big deal, but I don't think it's that big of a deal because a lot of those guys are just blah. I don't want to play them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. You knew what you were getting with Frank Gore when you drafted him. You were going to get a boring fantasy player, and you wouldn't draft him as an RB2, but he's likely going to finish in that range just because of the volume. But the stat itself...
He's the exception, yeah.
And that's the thing, is like the stat itself just shows what opportunity means to fantasy football. Like, especially at the running back position, is if you're getting the work, results are going to come, regardless of how efficient or inefficient you are. So, I mean, it's pretty rare to see a running back finish as a top 24 running back without seeing those 200 carries. Like, I think there were like maybe 3 or 4 players that finished top 20 last year without 200 carries.
Alvin Kamara could do it. He could do it with like 7 touches.
Well, he might have to.
Yeah. Let's go on the complete opposite end of Frank Gore for this one. My number 10, Todd Gurley's 21.3 standard points per game in 2017 was the most by a running back since Chris Johnson in 2009.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty ridiculous.
I mean, I've been talking about maybe Le'Veon Bell at number 1. No way. Todd Gurley just had an incredible season. He's the number 1 guy, and Bell gets hurt. Todd Gurley's never been hurt.
Yeah, and the thing is here, so Todd Gurley, a stat I came across yesterday too that I'm going to throw into, I think I'm going to re-release this article as we get closer to the season with maybe some more stats or facts in there. Todd Gurley, his receiving accounted for 114.8 of his standard points in standard leagues. That's the most in the league. Alvin Kamara was second with 112, but outside of them, the closest was Christian McCaffrey with 95 points. So it just goes to show you how much the receiving meant to, his production last year. The 788 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns, like what? Those are wide receiver numbers. And on top of that, you're getting a running back that ran for over 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. So Todd Gurley, man, like the guy deserves a hand. He did it. And honestly, he did it in the biggest games too. The fantasy playoffs, the guy single-handedly won fantasy leagues.
It's crazy to me because I think Gurley and Bell are the obvious number 1 and number 2, like not even close for me. And I've been hearing some noise. Some people are talking about getting David Johnson up there to number 1. I feel bad for laughing because it's like people that I respect, but no. Some people are saying Zeke at number 1. No. Some people are saying Antonio Brown at number 1. I can understand that one a little bit more. But Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell, they're locks at 1 and 2. These are the picks you want in fantasy drafts because their value above replacement's like 150.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing. Like the whole David Johnson argument, I'm sorry, the offense is just not going to be that good. And that's the thing is like, I'll be releasing an article as I did last year based on, what does team scoring mean for fantasy players? And the running back position, it means more than anything, where it's like to finish as a top 6 running back, your offense basically over the last 6 years of top 6 scoring running backs, I think it was like 83% of them came from top 6 scoring offenses. The Cardinals are not going to be even close to that, like nowhere near it. So David Johnson, as much as I love
Josh Rosen, man,
I love the player.
Josh Rosen will tell you that they're going to be the best offense in the whole world.
Oh God, yeah, and they're starting Christian Kirk outside on the perimeter, and yeah, that their offensive line is not good. They need to rebuild that, and that's the thing for me. The argument to not start Rosen week 1 is because the team just isn't very good around him. So give him some reps on the practice squad. I don't know. But the thing is, the offense is just not nearly good enough for me. And that's why David Johnson doesn't belong in that conversation. And Ezekiel Elliott, as much as I love Zeke, and I think that he actually is going to be great in standard leagues, PPR, he should make a little jump because I think he's going to have to be used in the receiving game. But the worry there is that who is going to take away attention from Ezekiel Elliott? Like who is going to say, you know what? Alan Hearns, we're going to leave you one-on-one, and like if you beat us, good, that's fine. We're not going to let Ezekiel Elliott beat us. If I'm a head coach, if I'm Bill Belichick or any of these guys, like I'm just going to say we're going to stop Zeke, and if we stop him, we win.
Yep, you're exactly right. And I want to go back to David Johnson really quick. David Johnson had 20 touchdowns in 2016. That's not happening again, folks. Yeah, I mean, he had 3.7 yards per carry in the last 8 weeks of the season because they keyed on him so much. And that's what's going to happen here again.
Yep, I agree with you. So I'm going to move on to my next stat here, and this one is important that you pay attention, and I'm going to show you what it means. Of the 265 running backs who have totaled at least 100 touches over the last 5 years, Alvin Kamara's 1.16 fantasy points per touch in 2017 was the most. Like, hands down, he won. The closest was 1.09, and that belonged to Chris Thompson last year. So we're talking over the last 5 years. Chris Thompson was the second most efficient running back on a per touch basis in 2017. Now, granted, we know who Alvin Kamara is. We know there's probably going to be some regression there. That's I don't even think the greatest of all time can maintain this sort of efficiency. But the fact that Chris Thompson, he's a player that you can get way down the draft board with crazy efficiency. Now, granted, he broke his leg last year, so that could definitely affect him as a player going forward. But it was really interesting to see, Alvin Kamara and Chris Thompson when compared side by side. Even if you go to PPR leagues, Kamara had 1.56 points per touch. Chris Thompson 1.47. Now, both of them had a lot of touchdowns. They're going to have touchdown regression there. They both had historic seasons, but it just goes to show you how efficient Chris Thompson actually was when you compare him to running backs over the last 5 years.
Lots of big plays. I like Chris Thompson. There's a lot of guys I like. I don't think Chris Thompson is a lot better than someone like Duke Johnson. I don't know what kind of touches Duke Johnson's going to get, but there's players like that out there that I'm not going to go crazy reaching for Chris Thompson. I'll just take whichever of those guys drops to me.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, they belong in there is a cluster of running backs, but I would take him over Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson's going to suffer the most, but you're talking about guys like that for sure. There's like an area of those PPR running backs. So Giovanni Bernard, Theo Riddick, those type players, even Rex Burkhead, I think falls in there. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting because Chris Thompson was actually kind of undervalued even before 2017, where he was like finishing as an RB3 in most weeks, but he was just a very boring player because he never got a whole bunch of touches.
Yeah. How does that happen? Like, I'm sitting here with my mouth closed and hair gets in my mouth. How does that even happen?
I have no idea.
You can leave this in if you want, Clinton, because people need to be thinking about this kind of stuff. It's very important.
If I start having hair go into my mouth while I'm talking and there's like nothing around me, my hands aren't moving, I'm a little worried, a little concerned.
All right, I'm going to get to my number 9 here in a second. But first, I want to say thanks to one of the sponsors of today's show, Draft.com. So this weekend, I had a little bit of extra time, put together my daily lineup for baseball like I always do. It was torched, by the way, and that's why you get back up on the horse, and you can do it every day at Draft.com. But I also did a best ball draft for fantasy football. Draft.com offers the best mobile experience. Their contests are a blast. If you want to build your lineup, you do it using a snake draft instead of a budget like the other DFS sites. It's a whole new challenge, lots of fun. And if you want to join me on Draft.com or using their app, we've got an offer for you. FantasyPros.com/offer. And if you're a new user to Draft.com, deposit $10. We'll give you a 6-month upgrade to Fantasy Pros, which will give you access to all our tools and content, covers all the sports. Baseball right now, going to carry you right into fantasy football season. Again, that's FantasyPros.com/offer. Deposit $10. We'll give you a $65 value for free. And you can win money with that $10 too, so it makes a lot of sense. All right, here's my number 9. Eli Manning's pass catchers dropped 43 passes last year, the most in the NFL, okay? No other quarterback had even 35 drops. What this tells me, Tags, is that the Giants, I think they're actually going to compete this year. I know the offensive line was a mess. They did a great job cleaning that up. I would have liked to see them take an offensive lineman a little bit earlier, maybe move back and get an offensive lineman. They didn't do that, but they did a good job cleaning it up. Beckham's coming back. What I think is going to happen here is they're going to win, and everyone's going to say, drafting Barkley that early was so smart. And that's just not the case, man. It's going to annoy me so much.
Once they landed the value they did later in the draft, I didn't have that much issues with the Giants taking Barkley, and I say that because they got really good value with Will Hernandez at the beginning of the second round. They landed Lorenzo Carter in the third round. Like, these are two players that should have been first-round picks, in my opinion. So I have no issue with it, considering who they got later in the draft. At the time, did it make sense? Not really. But they did rebuild that left side of the offensive line. So with Nate Solder and Will Hernandez coming in, I'm with you in the fact that, when I talked about those 21, 22 quarterbacks, I left Eli Manning out of that, but I actually believe there's going to be weeks where you can stream Eli Manning and be completely content with that, because this offense, like, it has too many good pieces for them not to succeed. And
their defense stopped trying too. I mean, they've got a ton of talent on defense, but not only did they stop trying, they had so many injuries. So I actually think the Giants are going to be good, and Barkley's going to benefit as a result of that. I know the schedule is extremely hard, but he's going to get so many touches. I love drafting Barkley, even though I didn't like him as the number 2 pick.
I actually have to. I've been trying to convince myself not to take Barkley ahead of David Johnson in fantasy drafts.
Whoa!
And I'm dead serious when I say that, is because, like, when going through everything, like, you don't draft Saquon Barkley not to use him. He's not coming off the field. And David Johnson, I do like David Johnson, but again, the offense scares me. Pat Shurmur coming to New York means a lot more for me than Steve Wilkes going to Arizona. So
agree.
That's the thing, is, like, I have to believe in the offense. So I think Barkley is actually the safer pick, and that's kind of odd for me to say.
It really bothered me, by the way. I don't remember what expert it was, but they came on and were essentially implying that anyone who believed that Barkley at 2 was a bad pick was just following the crowd. Or maybe the crowd is the crowd because it's a good take.
And that's the thing. So Bobby and I have had this conversation off air before, talking about replacement players and how he thought Leonard Fournette was a dumb pick, and how Le'Veon Bell, if they replace him with someone, they're just going to walk into that production. And I'm not an extremist either way. Like, I'm not totally like, you're an idiot for taking Leonard Fournette at 4. I believe that the Jaguars actually had a team that was built to run the ball a lot, and they needed a workhorse. And I don't think TJ Yeldon was ever going to be that guy for them. They kind of told us he wasn't. But, I'm also not of the mindset that someone can walk in and do someone else's job. I understand the efficiency numbers when it comes to Alfred Morris last year compared to Ezekiel Elliott, or D'Angelo Williams when compared to Le'Veon Bell. But I also think that defenses approach these running backs completely different. I also believe it's like,
you're right.
It's like when you're going to, like, let's say you're an NBA defender, right? And you're about to go up against Michael Jordan. You're going to bring your A game. Like, you're going to step up and you're going to be like, okay, I need to, like, play my best today. Where it's like, if you're playing against, John Paxson, I'm bringing up 90s Bulls players for whatever reason. But when you're matched up with him, you may not feel like you need to show up in that big a way. So I think there's a lot of different dimensions to this. So I'm not an extremist. I won't call people idiots. But again, the Giants, I'm okay with it now, just because of the way that the second and third round played out. I felt like they should have taken Bradley Chubb there. But again, getting Lorenzo Carter and, like, in the third round, that kind of made up for it, where it's like a little downgrade there, but you have Saquon Barkley. So I don't know. I love Barkley this year. Seriously, you will not talk me out of it. He should be a top 6 pick, and no matter what format you're playing in, he needs to be a top 6 pick.
All right, man, let's keep moving here. What's your number 8?
All right. There were just 3 wide receivers who finished inside the top 24 with less than 100 targets in 2017. Stefon Diggs, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Nelson Aguilar. So the takeaway from here is what we've talked about in the show before, Bobby. I said, when you're looking at wide receivers, the number one thing you want is volume. From there, you go to his quarterback, and then you look at the overall offense. Can someone take those targets? Is it possible? And you look at the schedule after that. There's a lot of different things, but number one is targets. And this goes to show you there was 3 wide receivers. That's it. That finished inside the top 24 with less than 100 targets. So it's extremely hard if you're not seeing those 100 targets to get in the top 24. And if you do, you need to be extremely efficient.
A lot of people are taking Tyreke Hill still as a wide receiver 1. Tags, he had 105 targets last year. This year, he's not getting 100 targets. I'd bet anyone that.
You know what? With Tyreke Hill, it's interesting. The reason that I could see right around that territory is because, granted, they ended Sammy Watkins. Like, he's going to get targets. Like, you don't sign a wide receiver for $50 million and not target him. That's going to happen. But I do see them passing more with Patrick Mahomes. Their defense is horrible. So I see an increase in passing attempts. But can Tyreke Hill remain as efficient as he's been, even if he gets around that 100 to 105 targets? My answer would be no. Like, I'm talking about regression towards the mean. Like, he's not an all-time great where I have to put him inside my top 12. I believe you're setting yourself up for failure because you need him to be that efficient with that many targets to live up to where you're drafting him. Like that's like a baseline. So drop him back to at least the wide receiver 18 territory. Like that's where I think that should be like the starting point for the conversation with Tyreke Hill. But yeah, it's just so hard when you're not getting those targets. And by the way, there was just one team in the NFL last year who had 2 wide receivers with more than 110 targets, and that was the Vikings with Stefon Diggs and Adam Thielen. So again, it's hard to get multiple pass catchers that volume, and they still have Kyle Rudolph there. So it's I don't know.
All right, here's my next one, and this one came from my buddy who looks just like Jay Cutler, by the way. To those who say Julio Jones is risky, Julio Jones finishes the last 3 years in half PPR. Wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 4. But he's injury prone. Julio Jones has played in the last 3 years 46 games. Antonio Brown, 45, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Julio Jones is really not that injury prone. He plays through some injuries. He's too boom or bust. Julio's single-digit games in the last 3 years, 14. Brown's, 13. It's really not that big of a difference.
Nope. Julio Jones, I mean, I still stand by the fact that I think he's the best receiver in the game. People will argue till they're blue in the face about Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown is equally, I'd say equally as talented, but I just believe that Julio being a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical, I think that I would say Julio gets the edge for me. They're obviously 2 specimens, but yeah, Julio Jones, for people that want to pass on him in drafts and let him fall into the late first, early second, I'll take him there all day.
I'll take him there all day, too. In fact, I'd rather have the number 1 pick and get Todd Gurley, but, if I'm waiting until, pick 10, oh, man, sign me up for Julio Jones there. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. So going over to my next one is, this one's a little tough for me to say because I like the player, but I have to say it. So of the 438 wide receivers who have seen at least 50 targets in the last 5 years, again, this is 438 wide receivers, Corey Davis's 0.55 fantasy points per target in 2017 ranked dead last.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
factor in the playoffs though. And how does it change?
Well, in the playoffs that would change a lot because Corey Davis was like maybe the most efficient wide receiver on a per target basis in the playoffs. And the thing is like you could tie some of that to Marcus Mariota because Mariota looked like crap last year. I was expecting some regression, but I was not expecting him to look like he did because he just looked lost at times. And I don't know how much it's tied to his, not connecting with wide receivers in the offseason because Corey Davis was hurt through the preseason, then he got hurt at the beginning of the season. So they didn't have much time to build chemistry. So what they did in the playoffs, I think they build on that this year, but it was alarming for me to see him like that low of efficiency. Like it was really bad, like not good at all.
Yeah. All right, here's my next one. Cam Newton's 754 rushing yards. Man, that is a ton. That was his career high. I mean, he's getting older. He's not old like Tom Brady or anything, but he's getting older for a running quarterback. I don't think this is sustainable. I think that Cam Newton right now is quite a bit overrated. And frankly, because Deshaun Watson and Carson Wentz are being drafted ahead of him, I'd much rather have Newton than either of those guys. But I think Newton is still being drafted way too high.
Newton, it depends on where you look with him because I've seen him, I've gotten him in some best ball leagues as like a QB8, and that is like stealing territory. The reason I say that is because I've dialed him back in my projections, like 754 yards is not going to happen again. They were ultra careful in 2016, and I think they saw what it did to the offense. Like him going down into that 360-yard mark for his rushing total, it really negatively impacted the team. Like they need him running the football because if you take away Cam Newton's legs, I'm sorry, he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's just not. He's not a good passer. So you need him to have that dual threat. It should open things up from the passing game for them, just because teams have to have like a QB spy on him at all times. So I've dialed him back to about the 600 rushing yard mark. I don't think that he scores the 6 touchdowns again rushing. But again, when you talk about rushing quarterbacks, like the floor is just phenomenal. So Cam Newton should be drafted as a top 5 quarterback just because of what he presents. I think the Panthers have realized the quarterback that he is, what they have to do with him, whether they like it or not. Because again, after that concussion, that whole time period, they were scared and they were like, this is our franchise quarterback. We have to protect him. We shouldn't let him run that much. And you saw his attempts dip. He had it was under 100 attempts in 2016. And then it was like, you know what? Cam's got to be Cam, and we have to let him do what he's going to do. And you saw the offense take a step forward again last year. So, again, not a great passer, but he will run the football. So I do see his yardage staying around that 600 mark.
Run him into the ground, and when he's done, he's done. It makes sense. I mean, what are you going to do? Just be mediocre while you have Cam Newton? No, you go for it for 2-3 years, and then he's done. So what?
That's where I'm at with it. That's what I'm saying is like if I had Cam Newton, he could be a game changer, but you have to use him in that way. Because if you try and make him a pocket passer and say, well, we only want you to run the ball 70, 80 times a year, it's not going to work.
You know, I like him as a top 5 QB, but like people are drafting him in the top 60 overall, and that's not even close to right. I don't think so.
I agree. All right, so one of the stats that I had, and I posted it on Twitter, the people seem to like this one, is that Alvin Kamara's 826 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns through the air accounted for more fantasy points than Amari Cooper, more fantasy points than Sammy Watkins, and more fantasy points than Jordy Nelson had last season. Just his receiving yards. Like, if you take away everything Alvin Kamara did on the ground, all of his touchdowns, all of his rushing yards, he still would have outscored Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, and Jordy Nelson.
Are you serious?
Ridiculous, right?
There's no way.
Yeah.
Are you lying to everyone?
No, definitely not, man. Alvin Kamara was a beast catching the ball out of the backfield.
Wow, man.
Nuts.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And what can we take away from that?
You should have saved that for last, because, like, we're not beating that.
What can we...
Actually, I'm going to beat that with my, not the next one, but the one after that. I'm definitely beating that.
Well, what can we take away from that? And the fact that Alvin Kamara is a wide receiver that you just happen to be getting some rushing totals from. So when people talk about, Mark Engram being suspended for the first 4 games, and what does this mean for Kamara? How many more carries is he going to get? Even if he gets a carry or 2 per game, that's just a little added bonus. Like, you treat him as a slot wide receiver, essentially, and whatever he gets in the ground, awesome. He's going to have some regression just because that's natural, but he's automatically going to outscore most running backs on an efficiency standpoint because his touches are primarily in the passing game. And when you have Ted Ginn, Michael Thomas, Cameron Meredith out there running routes, I'm sorry, Alvin Kamara cannot demand a double team. Like, he's a running back. You can't do that. That's why him and Christian McCaffrey they change an entire offense and the way they work. And I just love the fact that Sean Payton knows exactly how to use this kid.
All right, we've got a couple more here. Here's my next one. Evan Engram led all tight ends with 11 drops. Yeah. Nobody else had over 7. That is nuts, man.
And he's someone that seriously, like, stay away from him at his current cost. It's so expensive. All right, my next one. Only 13 quarterbacks threw the ball more than 500 times, the lowest number since 2010. And this one's significant because it's not likely to happen again. All right. It's not like the game is trending towards more of a run heavy approach. It's also the reason why running backs are being drafted so high. The workhorse running backs should be taken high. I understand that they typically outscore the highest scoring wide receivers.
There's like 5 of them.
But last year was an outlier, guys. Like, don't see what happened last year and be like, oh, that automatically happens. You're going to see some stud wide receivers this year. I promise you. There's going to be like 2 or 3 wide receivers where you're like, oh my God, how did we let them fall into the late first or early into the middle of the second round? How did that happen? That's going to happen this year because it always does. Yep. The fact that there were so few attempts in the NFL last year, it's going to rise. The NFL is moving towards a passing league. This whole lowering your helmet thing for running backs, that's going to hurt the run games. And I think that's why ultimately, I like I said, I'm moving more back toward, like, I started a best ball the other day. I've started this draft with 3 wide receivers and a quarterback. I actually got Rodgers in the 4th round, but I have 3 wide receivers, no running backs, and Aaron Rodgers. So I'm trying this whole 0 running back approach. I'm going to end up taking 2 of them, my next 2 picks. That's probably going to happen. But seriously, the game is going to shift. Last year was really an outlier in what's been happening.
I thought you were going to use that to say that the game is shifting towards running. And I was going to say, no. Everybody was hurt last year.
Yes.
And that, quarterbacks get hurt. It happens every year, but not at the rate it happened last year. That was extreme. And my next stat actually goes with this. DeAndre Hopkins led the league with 213.8 fantasy points. That ranks just 14th among receivers over the last 5 years. So, like, it wasn't a great season or anywhere close to it. It was usually like, would have been the 3rd, 4th best season. And that's who DeAndre Hopkins is. People drafting DeAndre Hopkins over Julio Jones, I don't know what to say to you. No.
I'm having an internal debate. I mean, I'll take Hopkins just because I can get Adams later, but I think Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, I don't see much difference in production this year.
Yeah.
Between those two.
Yep, I agree. And one of them has the GOAT quarterback, and one of them has a quarterback that I'm about to blast in a minute.
All right, speaking of quarterbacks, my next one is on Matt Ryan. He was actually the only quarterback to throw for at least 4,000 yards and not finish as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Now, why is this important? Because touchdowns are extremely inconsistent year over year, and it's one of the things you don't ever want to rely on. So the fact that Matt Ryan still threw for over 4,000 yards in what was considered a down season, he only had 529 pass attempts. Matt Ryan is being severely undervalued. Like, I've seen him go as late as like QB 18 off the board, and that's crazy to me. I'm actually higher than the expert consensus on him. I think the addition of Calvin Ridley is definitely not going to hurt him. Another year under Sarkisian, hopefully they step forward, because Matt Ryan, it was a down year last year, but again, his down year still netted over 4,000 passing yards. So
I'm way higher on Matt Ryan than everyone else. I have him as number 13, and I'm thinking about pushing him back into the top 12. I mean, he was number 5 last year in ECR, and everyone smart at least said that was way too high.
For sure.
We knew he was going to go backwards. It's the same thing as Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson this year. Everyone knows he's going to go backwards except the people who aren't paying attention, but Matt Ryan is always a top 17 quarterback. And right now he's being drafted as the 17th quarterback. I mean, he's been top 10, 5 of the last 8 years? He just had the best quarterback season maybe of all time 2 years ago, and he's going 17th? That's nuts.
This is one of those instances where we're talking about like buying a quarterback based on where like equity. You know, when I talked about Tyreke Hill and the fact that even if you believe that he's going to live up to the efficiency that he's had the last couple of years, you're drafting him at his ceiling. Like, what are you doing? Whereas someone with Matt Ryan, you're drafting him at his absolute floor. So anything you get on top of his floor is equity, and that's what we want in fantasy drafts. So yes, I'm with you.
There are 3 quarterbacks I'm going to be drafting this year. If I don't get the top 2, I'm going to have Matt Ryan in every single league. I can imagine I'm going to get Jameis Winston in a ton of them. Otherwise, Matthew Stafford. It's one of those 3 for me, unless ECR changes a ton, but I don't think it's going to.
I don't even want to mention how high I have, Jameis Winston came back in my projections for the season. I don't even want to talk about it, because seriously, I need to redo them.
I need to know. I need to know, because I've got him right now as my number 8 quarterback, and I want to know if that's crazy.
Well, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I think that's I actually, number 7, he came back in my initial projections. But that's the thing, is like I'm smart enough to understand that, okay, so maybe I'm a little off on something here. What do I need? Has to be some give and take, like, somewhere, because like the consensus is usually not that far off on a player, because Jameis Winston is being drafted like late in a lot of drafts.
I know.
So I think he's one of the steals. So if you pair him with Matt Ryan, I think you're going to be set. And some people mock people for drafting 2 quarterbacks. I'm not one to do that. Like, if you look at the early schedule and you say, I'm going to flip-flop between these 2 quarterbacks, I'm just going to play the matchups, I am okay with that, because as I've mentioned on this show before, a lot of those guys that you take with the last round, like your last pick, or a lot of those guys end up being dropped. And it's important to know that if you need to drop a quarterback, you can do that. You don't have to be too attached to him, because you'll find out kind of how the offense is operating, early on in the season. So, definitely like Jameis Winston, like Matt Ryan.
I've been guilty of mocking people for 2 quarterbacks, but I'm cool with drafting both those guys. Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to wait on quarterbacks, those are the 2 to own right there.
For sure. All right. So speaking of efficiency and how...
Oh, it's my turn.
Oh, my bad.
You're trying to get extra stats in here. Meanwhile, I have better stats than you, so you need to let me go. I'm just kidding.
Let's hear it.
I took a lot of these from you, so I shouldn't say that. But this is maybe the one that I'm going to bang the drum on the most this season, because I really want to make sure you guys don't blow it. If you draft Deshaun Watson at his price right now, or anywhere close to it, you are going to blow it. So don't do it, okay? 9.3% touchdown rate, which is so unsustainable that it's laughable. Tom Brady, who a lot of people will say is the best ever, I think he's top 5, okay? My producer's going to be mad at me. Everyone's going to be mad at me for saying that. Bring on the hate mail. At Bobby Fantasy Pro, and while you're at it, Tags agrees, and you should probably tell him at Mike Taglier NFL. Anyway, Tom Brady, 5.5% over his career. So even if Watson went from 9.3 all the way down to one of the best quarterbacks of all time at 5.5, he would have gone from being the number 1 quarterback while he started to the number 7 fantasy quarterback. I think that's what he is. Maybe, I don't know. I have Watson right now as my number 9 quarterback, but that's because, he's coming off the major injury. It was a small sample size, just 5 games. The league's figuring him out. Deshaun Watson at quarterback number 2 or quarterback number 3 is so crazy to me. I can't give enough stats. I mean, Blake Bortles was the number 1 quarterback for a 5-game sample size, okay? Small sample sizes change everything, and that's all we saw from Watson.
Abso-friggin-lutely. For people, even if you're a supporter of Deshaun Watson, you have to understand that he is going to be overdrafted just because of what happened. I want to give a shout out to Graham Barfield. He posted a tweet the other day that really rang a bell, and it was just like, I wanted to mention on the podcast because it was a really good one. So there have been 46 quarterbacks to have a 6% or higher passing touchdown rate in a single season since 2000. Do you know how many of those quarterbacks, those 46 quarterbacks, increased their passing touchdown percentage the following year?
Oh, it's got to be like 2 or 3.
0.
What?
The average
Wow.
decrease in year-over-year touchdown rate among those 46 quarterbacks was negative 1.97%. So the quarterbacks who hit that mark in 2017 that you should expect regression from, Deshaun Watson at 9.3. That's that's coming way down, guys. Carson Wentz at 7.
That's going to be split in half.
Yeah, I would argue that he should be right around that 5% mark. And I think I'm being generous by putting him there. But either way, Carson Wentz at 7.5%, Aaron Rodgers at 6.7%, and Russell Wilson at 6.1%. So, going by history, all those guys would decline.
I mean, if you're going to say that one of those guys isn't going to decline, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's got to be.
I think losing Jordy Nelson hurts, but getting Jimmy Graham, a big red zone tight end that he has not had, I think that does help his touchdown numbers. But yeah, I mean, Wentz is going to go down for sure. Watson's going to go down. Wilson, probably. I mean, Rashad Penny, when you bring him in, I would imagine they're going to run the ball on the goal line more than they did last year.
And they lost Graham.
Yep, losing Graham, that obviously hurts him. So yeah, if there's one, I would say Rodgers, but by history, it's saying that even Rodgers will decline.
All right, man. You've got 3 more, I believe.
I do.
I've got 2 more. Unless you want to just take all mine and you can have like 6.
No.
That's what you really want to do.
No, it's cool. All right. So, we've talked about Tyreke Hill before, and this is a stat that I had on his efficiency and basically how it's unsustainable. Of the 178 wide receivers who have seen at least 100 targets over the last 5 years, Hill's 11.3 yards per target in 2017 was the highest. So you're talking like literally the pinnacle of all wide receivers over the last 5 years in yards per target. So don't come at me and tell me that Patrick Mahomes has an arm and he can get the ball down the field to Tyreke Hill better than Alex Smith.
Meanwhile, Alex Smith was the best in the whole
deep
league
thrower
at that.
in the entire NFL last year. Yes, that was a stat. I didn't put it in here because I think people are sick about hearing my Alex Smith, my support of Alex Smith, which I don't know why, but whatever. It is what it is. But what I'm saying is that Tyreke Hill's efficiency on a yards per target basis was phenomenal last year. I'm not taking anything away from him as a wide receiver. I'm just saying he cannot continue to produce like that. And when you say it's very possible that he regresses in the target column, that's a problem.
Yep, it definitely is. And he's like the Will Fuller, but of yards. So that's scary. All right, here's my next one. For the 5th straight season, Russell Wilson saw an increase in pass attempts. They just keep letting him throw the ball more and more.
I don't think it's happening this year, though, sadly. And I mean, I say that because, losing Jimmy Graham is obviously big. They didn't add another wide receiver that will make a significant impact. I don't think Jaron Brown is someone that's going to walk in and just, force you to throw the ball more. So I think there's going to be a regression there. Also, the new offensive coordinator in Schottenheimer, I don't like him necessarily as a play caller. I don't think that he's a difference maker. So yeah, I mean, as much as I like Russell Wilson, I still have him as my number 2 dynasty quarterback right now. I'm not in love with their team this year.
Yeah, I'm not either. I think they're going to win 6 or 7 games, and I'm probably going to get a ton of hate for that because Seahawks fans are savages. But, I don't think the Seahawks are very good this year. I think most analysts think the Seahawks aren't very good this year.
Well, it's true. I mean, the thing is so Seahawks fans take that as is a good thing, right? You guys are very passionate about your team, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
the fact that you guys do get out there, like the crowd is always into it there, and that's awesome to have as a home crowd. With that being said, the Seattle Seahawks roster outside of Russell Wilson is not good. It's just not. There's not much you like on that team. And honestly, I did have one Seahawks fan that told me, he's like, Mike, if we lost Wilson, we would legitimately be the worst team in the NFL. So there's some people that are level-headed out there.
Well, that's not true because you have Austin Davis, but
did they
close.
cut Austin Davis or is he still on the roster?
No, they cut Stephen Morris because they're so
right.
stupid.
They had one of Bobby's heroes on their bench. No, but yeah, but the thing is like I said, this offense is, I think it's going to take some time for them to find their way. And I don't know if it's going to be under Pete Carroll, which I don't know if that's right or wrong. But it is what it is. So All right. So let me go on to my next one. Rex Burkhead. This is a stat for you guys who I've been one to say that I like Rex Burkhead before they signed Sony Michel, but this is a stat that's going to make you kind of like, oof. Rex Burkhead scored a touchdown on 8.5% of his touches in 2017. That was number one among running backs with at least 50 touches. That 8.5% was actually 2% higher than Alvin Kamara, who is at 6.5%. The league average for running backs is scoring a touchdown on 2.85% of their touches. So Rex Burkhead is in for some serious regression. So if people want to sit here and scream regression for Alvin Kamara, who scored on 6.5% of his touches, Rex Burkhead is in for some serious regression.
I say not so fast, okay? Because the Patriots always run the ball in the goal line like way more than anybody else in the NFL.
But Deion
like
Lewis isn't on this list.
More.
Deion Lewis wasn't up there. Deion Lewis, he was obviously below Kamara. The only running backs who were in between them that they didn't quite hit the threshold was Corey Clement, Austin Eckler, and Rod Smith. Those were the only ones in between those guys. So that's what I'm saying. No other Patriots running back was above 6.5. He had 8.5.
Yeah. Yeah, 8.5 is way too high. Okay, you win that one. You're definitely right. All right, here's my last one. And I saved this one for last because the producer's going to love it. He is a huge 49ers fan, Jimmy G fanboy. And you know what? I am too. Jimmy G is the man. Of quarterbacks with at least 100 attempts over the last 5 years. So, we're talking Peyton Manning still in the league. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees. Jimmy Garoppolo's 8.8 yards per attempt in 2017, third best in the last 5 years. The dude is a superstar. Doesn't matter who he's passing the ball to. And my takeaway here is not to draft Jimmy G because he's been not as underdrafted as Jameis Winston and Matthew Stafford. The takeaway is that his wide receivers and tight ends are going to get some points one way or another. I don't care if they're not very good. They're going to get a lot of points.
Hold on a second. I'm going to throw out a fun stat here, and you guys are going to love this one. So we have a rivalry, me and my producer Clinton, about the Bears and the 49ers. And you know what? I actually think that...
What a crappy rivalry. Wow.
I think they're both in position to be like some of the better offenses going forward. So the reason that Jimmy Garoppolo... So he didn't throw very many touchdowns last year. That's the reason that his overall numbers weren't where they should have been. I think that's where people are expecting some positive regression there. But here's the thing. Did you know, Bobby, Mitch Trubisky had some bad receivers that he was throwing to last year, arguably worse than Jimmy Garoppolo's. Did you know that once Jimmy Garoppolo took over as the starting quarterback for the 49ers, if you put him side by side with Mitch Trubisky, they each had the exact same amount of 18-point fantasy games?
No.
People don't realize that towards the end of the year, Mitch Trubisky was getting better. He started using his legs a little bit more.
What is this, like points per incomplete pass?
Shut up. This is not even fun. I don't like what you've just done right now. However, we have to get to the last stat that I have. But Jimmy Garoppolo, it was no. So here's the thing with Garoppolo, you have to understand that it's a small sample size, and that it's the same thing with Trubisky because he didn't have like great performance after great performance. It's very up and down, and I think that's what happens with both of them with less than ideal wide receiver cores. Getting Pierre Garçon,
and he gets Kevin White back.
Oh, God. Okay. We need to move on from this one. But yeah, no, Jimmy Garoppolo, historic season. Like, he played lights out. And, can I fault San Francisco for giving him that contract? I mean, it was a lot of money, but no, I cannot fault them considering, what they got him for, a second-round pick, and that they needed to lock up a quarterback, and I think he's more than competent. I think he showed that. Yeah. So moving on to the final stat that I have for you guys, this is one, just like the last one that I had on Rex Burkhead. These ones were not in the article because these are things I've come across since that time and why I want to kind of re-release it as we get closer to the season. But Juju Smith-Schuster, I need to bang the drum here because I loved Juju the player. Coming in last year, I felt like he was undervalued by the dynasty community. But as of now, I know Bobby and I have talked off air in the fact that I think he's one of the most overvalued dynasty assets. And I say that because last year he ranked 55th in targets per game at 5.6. I'm going to give you guys a measuring stick here. Be like, well, wow, that sounds low. That was less targets per game than Kendall Wright and Danny Amendola in 2017. His yards per target, that 11.6. That was the highest of any wide receiver with at least 25 targets. Remember when I mentioned that whole Tyreke Hill stat, that 11.3 yards per target was going to be impossible to sustain? Well, Juju didn't hit the 100 target threshold to get into that conversation, but his 11.6 yards per target would have been the most of all over the last 5 years. So Juju is going to regress in his yards per target. He's going to regress in his touchdowns, which, by the way, he was like, I think there were only three or four wide receivers who caught one more often than he did. He's going to regress in yards per target. He's going to regress in touchdowns. I don't think the offense changed that much around him. They didn't lose Antonio Brown. Le'Veon Bell's still there. They replaced Martavis Bryant with arguably a better wide receiver in James Washington. Not much changed in the situation, but he's being drafted as a top 24 wide receiver. Like, stop, people, stop. Like, you can make the case to draft him as a top 30, 35 receiver. I get that. I really do. But top 24, stop doing it. And can I give
He's being drafted ahead of Golden Tate.
That's stupid. That's dumb.
That is so ridiculous, people.
Don't do that. And I like Juju Smith-Schuster. I like him as a person. I like him as a player. I like him, but I do not like him more than Golden Tate in fantasy football. That's just dumb.
Yep, it definitely is.
All right, so can I give one more bonus stat just because?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sitting here like waiting for my sandwich very patiently, but yeah, you can give an extra one. Actually, when you were talking about Cam Newton, I put it on mute and I took one bite. It was really good. And it just made it worse. Like, I'm just sitting here even hungrier now.
So Cam Newton made you want to eat. All right. So Will Fuller is going to make you do the same. So Will Fuller caught a touchdown once every 7.1 targets in 2017. Everybody knows he scored at a ridiculous pace. The closest players to him with more than 3 touchdowns were Sammy Watkins, who caught one every 8.8 targets. And then it was Juju every 11.3. Players in this territory from 2016, like, you might want to close your ears if you like Will Fuller, Sammy Watkins, or even maybe Juju. The players in that territory for touchdowns per target were Dante Moncrief, Taylor Gabriel, and Kenny Stills in 2016.
That is not a good crowd. And you know what? Like, I was really proud of myself when Sammy Watkins started coming back and almost beat Amari Cooper. Like, he was leading going into week 17. Yep. And I have to admit, like, he was so lucky to even be close to Amari Cooper because of those touchdowns. And Cooper was the opposite with touchdowns.
He was, and Cooper was so up and down, and his injury didn't help matters. Like, playing like he played like 5 snaps in one game, and it counted against his per game averages. And I'm
yes,
like, oh
awesome.
my god, I was losing it, man.
Man, it would have been so fun if you were the one that had to run the combine here.
Oh man, that would have been ugly. Nobody wants to see that.
I should have picked someone better than Sammy Watkins just so everyone could have seen that.
Oh, we're going to have to come up with a different bet this year. I don't know. It's not going to be a combine because we can't do the same one every year. Nobody wants to see you run the combine twice because you will lose, but we have to figure out another bet.
Well, I mean, once you're in the NFL, I don't think you can run the combine anymore. And once I do the combine, I'm going to be in the NFL, so.
Awesome.
All right, man. That's all for today's show. Thanks again to the sponsors of today's show, PristineAuction.com. That's PRISTINE. And they're giving away a signed Todd Gurley jersey. All you have to do is subscribe and review us on iTunes. Send it to contest@fantasypros.com. Make sure to let them know Fantasy Pros sent you. That way we can keep doing these giveaways. And thanks also to draft.com. If you go to fantasypros.com/offer and deposit $10 as a new user to draft.com, you'll get a $65 value to our highest premium package for 6 months. For Mike Tagliere, I'm Bobby Sylvester. Thanks for listening and enjoy your football.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.